Welcome to the Alan Factor. I'm Alan Pincus, and I'm going to take you on this journey, eclectic one, I'm sure. And we'll see, maybe we'll have some fun doing it, solving all the world's problems, hopefully some of my own too. So a lot of people ask me, what is the show about? And for those of you who ever read the book Ulysses by James Joyce, it's streaming consciousness, where they have a group of people in the town and you follow them through their daily activities, and they're going from once, and they're going, let's say they're going to go to the supermarket, and they're saying, well, I'm going to go to the supermarket. But then they're thinking, well, you know what? John might be there. I don't want to talk to John. Maybe I'll go there later. So I'll go to the hairdresser first. And this is what it's going to be. It's just streaming consciousness. Whatever comes to my mind is going to go to your ears. And I describe it, Jerry Seinfeld described the show as a show about nothing. Well, we'll do a show about nothing. And I'm going to do a show about everything. So to start off, I think I'm going to start off with just some basic philosophies of mine, how I think and how I'm going to run this show. When people heard the word philosophy, they generally think of what is taught in the colleges, which it's not really being taught anything, just a bunch of floating abstractions ending up in nothingness. But what people don't realize is every society from the beginning of time till now is based on a particular philosophy. Capitalism is a philosophy. Communism is a philosophy. So the most important thing about any society is its philosophy. One of my favorite philosophers, Ayn Rand, she actually came up with her own brand of philosophy, which is objectivist epistemology. Now, epistemology is the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope. And objective, here's the difference between subjective and objective, which will give you the difference between liberal and thinking people. Subjective means based on personal perspective or preferences of a person, which is liberal, while objective means not influenced or based on a personal viewpoint, which means the rest of us that are thinking. Now, a lot of you may think that you don't really come across philosophy often. But I'm going to give you some terms that I'm sure you know, and you'll be surprised that they came from certain philosophers. I would suggest everybody, even if you're a liberal, to read the book Philosophy Who Needs It by Ayn Rand. And I read the book about 40 years ago, and then I reread it about 4 or 5 years ago and was astounded that exactly what's going on now, she predicted over 60 years ago. She predicted the takeover of the universities. She already said it happened 60 years ago, which means it's probably closer to 80 or 100 years. So we have to understand that this didn't just happen. This has been going on for a long time. But let me give you some examples. Don't be sure. Nobody can be certain of anything. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that. That came from the philosopher David Hume. It may be true for you, but it's not true for me. That came from Hegel. I can't prove it, but I feel that it's true. That came from one of the worst philosophers, Kant, who also said things like, it's logical, but logic has nothing to do with reality. And then you're going to get where the liberal thinking goes, which is if it's evil because it's selfish. Now, that is the basic of the liberal thinking. Evil to them is capitalism. If you go out there and you just do things for yourself, they consider that selfish, because in the communist point of view, you have to be for the good of all. But that's not how it works. And then the other thing that he said is, if it feels good, it is good. Now, this all ties into what's going on now. I mean, I'm sure you heard our esteemed president, in his articulate manner, oh my God, say that we believe in truth over facts. He was doing some rambling, bumbling, stumbling statement like he always does, and came up with that. What that means is truth over facts. Mr. President, let me explain what facts are. Facts are the truth. But when you're a liberal, if you feel that something is not right, even though it's a fact, then it's not right. And that's how liberals think. So to get along in society, we have to have compromise. Liberals don't believe in compromise. Let's take, well, this is based on everything. Most things are based on the worst of us. Even something like right to die. Now, so there are people that are suffering from cancer and just want to end their life, and we don't let them do it. Why? Because people will abuse it. So we made these laws based on people that will abuse it rather than for the good. It's like that with gun control. We want to take the guns away from everyone because there are certain people that use it for crimes. Problem is, when you take the guns away, you only take it away from the people who don't commit the crimes. Why people can't understand that is astounding to me. But here we are. So let me go into some of the things. I think one of the things that happened with George Floyd is the beginning of this nonsense that we're talking about here. So George Floyd was a career criminal, drug addict, lowlife. He was committing a crime while on drugs and resisting arrest. Now, I don't agree with what the police officer did. What he did, he had to subdue the man. He had to put him down. But at some point, you have to see that if the man is in stress, you have to let him go. So I think the officer should have been punished. But I do not think that George Floyd should be made a hero. But this is what we did. We made this man into a hero. I was talking to a friend from high school, an acquaintance from high school. Let's call him Lonnie, because that's his name, Lonnie. So I said to Lonnie, Lonnie, there are 10 million arrests every year, which comes out to 800,000 or 900,000 a month, over 1,000 an hour. I said, you have to expect things like this to happen. Well, it should never happen. Unfortunately, none of us are as perfect as Lonnie. So these things do happen. And I said, murder should never happen, period. Never mind by the police. Why do we even have any murders? It should never happen. And then I thought about it. Now, let me tell you something else about my philosophy. My favorite philosopher is Socrates. And his philosophy was, which is mine, the two things I know for sure is, one, I know I don't have the answer. And two is, I know you don't have the answer. Now, because of this, the political system of the time, which was Athens, Greece, at around 400 BCE, sentenced him to death for being a rabble-rouser. He was destroying the minds of the youth just by saying that. At those times, the general consensus was about there were a bunch of gods and there were certain things that people believed. Now, Socrates didn't go over to somebody and say, no, you're wrong, and I'm going to show you how you're wrong. What he did was he questioned them. He asked, why do you believe this? Do you think maybe there's another way of thinking about it? Maybe this works. And that's all he did. He questioned everything. He had different points of view. And just because of that, because he didn't fall into lockstep with what they thought at the time, he was sentenced to death. Now, governments have not been any better since, I don't think. But this is how things work. So I said to Lonnie, it's just not possible, Lonnie. Then I came up with this thought. And now, when I say about the Socrates, I bring that up because no matter what I say, I'm not going to say you're wrong, I'm right, or I'm right and you're wrong. I think that's a better way of saying it. I'm going to say, well, this is the consensus. This is what people think. But maybe, just maybe, there's another way of thinking about it. So creation, evolution, I don't know what you believe. I'm not even sure what I believe. I have questions about everything, both of them. So let's start with creation. We had Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. Are you with me with this? So I haven't seen anything that's not common knowledge from the Bible. So when you look at that, there were 4 people on earth and we had our first murder. In other words, 25% of the humans on earth were murderers. And now, I don't know how, creation, 8,009, that's an absurd number too. People think the earth was only 10,000. We're finding different places that were built 14, 15,000 years ago. Even the pyramids, they're thinking 5,000 years ago is not old enough. So I have a problem with the creation on that. But this is basic human nature, is what I'm saying. We are a flawed creature, all of us, the entire planet. So to say, yeah, there should be no murder, there should be no disease, there should be no poverty, but there is. And there is no perfect solution. And when this George Floyd thing happened, everybody was up in arms. Oh my God, look what they did, and they're killing black men all over. First of all, if any of you did any seeking of real truth, you would know that in the year that it happened to George Floyd, there were only 12 black men killed, 12 unarmed black men killed by police. Now, when I say only, if I was a family of one of those people, it wouldn't be only to me. But the point is, the narrative that police were going out, even this police, I don't recall his name, the one who ended up being charged with the murder of George Floyd. He did not go out that day to look for a black man to kill. He just went out to do his job. There was a man committing a crime. He went to arrest him. The man resisted arrest and ended up dead. And the whole world is up in arms. Oh my God, look what they did to this man. They don't talk about the time that George Floyd pulled a gun on a pregnant woman and put the gun to her belly to tell her to get money. No, they put him in a picture with Mother Mary. So we have to put things in perspective. Now, again, I have no qualms with saying how wrong that police officer was. But to then start riots and the entire world was turned upside down over this one piece of garbage. That's what he is. That's what he was. I'm not going to say anything different. That's what the man was. He never did anything in his life but rob, steal, do drugs, get arrested, repeat. Rather rinse and repeat. Rather rinse and repeat. I mean, that was his life. And then all of a sudden he's a hero because he died during an arrest. And I say died during an arrest. I don't say he was murdered by that cop because he wasn't murdered by that cop. Again, the cop did not do the right thing. I understand that. But murder is premeditated action. This cop did not go out to murder a black man or anybody else. George Floyd, if he wasn't committing a crime or wasn't high on drugs or didn't resist arrest, he would still be alive. So any one of those three, if he didn't do, he would still be here. Yet nobody wants to put any blame on George Floyd. It's the rest of us. It's the white man. It's the cops. And the entire, it's hard to believe sometimes what people say. The president just said the other day, so now you're starting to get the idea what streaming consciousness is. And this is what it is. This is right off, not really even related to that topic. But the president said there are people trying to keep the black man down in this country. Mr. President, give me a single name of a person that is keeping the black, wants to even. I do construction for a living. Now, my clients, if they don't have customers, they don't need me. I want everybody to do better. Why would I want to keep? It's just not true. They're not trying to divide us. They have divided us. We are completely divided. I don't even see a way back. But even like during the George Floyd, there was another killing. Trayvon Martin. Now, Trayvon Martin, that was a racist killing. A racist. George Zimmerman will always be a racist. Yet the president of the United States stood up on the podium and said, that could have been my son. Well, yeah, in that situation, what he should have got up and said, this is not a racist country. There is racism in this country. You will never get rid of racists. It is not possible in the human condition. Yet he aggravated the situation. I just don't understand why a person with that type of bully pulpit would come up and say that rather than say, look, people, this is a bad situation. This person should not have been killed. Obviously, but we had a person. Let me tell you about George Zimmerman. I've done security in my life. I've done years of security, working full time, on and off for 15 years. And in that time, I only called the police maybe a half a dozen times. Zimmerman called the police 18 times that month. This was a psycho. The man was a psycho. There was something wrong with him. But the funny thing is with Obama, we had a president, we had an attorney general, we had most of his staff were black. This country at the time was being run by black people. Yet he wanted to call it a racist, systemic racist society. How is that possible? How is it possible that it's a racist society if the entire country is being run by black people? Somebody explain that to me. The thing is, it's not possible. It's not true. But this is what we have. We have people, rather than trying to make things better, just keep adding fuel to the fire. And I really don't understand why they can't do it. Now we have what's going on the campuses now is just astounding. And we have a president that has not said a word about it. This is the man that's running the free world and has not said a word about what's going on. The presidents of the universities have backbones of jellyfish. It's remarkable that they did nothing and waited for things to happen. And they knew that a lot of the people that came into the universities were not part of the university. They came in just to do this. It was the same thing with the supposedly January 6th insurrection. It was not an insurrection. That was just a riot, like everything else is a riot, like the Summer of Love were riots. These people come in to do this. This is what they do. And we're not calling it out. I'd like to give a shout out to Jerry Seinfeld, actually, for being a stand-up Jew, for coming out and showing what he is. And I mentioned him before, and I forgot to give him a shout out. But we all have to stand up. I mean, it's so obvious what's happening, and yet nobody's doing anything. So they finally fixed some of the problems. Now, what are these people rioting? These are riots. I mean, it was like in the summer of love. And you say to somebody, well, there were fires in the background. And I don't know what they're saying. They were, that was just fires so we can sit around and sing Kumbaya. No, that was fires burning buildings down. That was not a peaceful demonstration. Kyle Rittenhouse did not go out to kill somebody. Kyle Rittenhouse, somebody said, well, he went out looking for trouble. No, there already was trouble. He went out to try to prevent some of it. And then you had the people on The View calling him a murderer, saying he wasn't really crying. And but nobody condemned the violence. Nobody condemned the riots. It's just complete blind. It's not blindness. It's willingness to not see. Blindness you can't help. Ignorance and just not wanting to see things you can help. Jerry Seinfeld is a landsman of mine. Landsman is a Yiddish term for friend, but a friend is part of my tribe, which is the Jewish tribe. And make no mistake about it. We have advanced technologically to an extent where we have a phone that tells us when to fart, but we're still tribal. We have not progressed that much since the beginning. I mean, I spoke about creation. Let's talk about evolution. Maybe. Now, of course, I'm not saying that creation is wrong and evolution is correct. All I'm saying is there are two thoughts on this. And here's why I think evolution should have some higher ground than most people give it for. I watch these documentaries often about the jungle animals and chimpanzees. And I'm watching one day and I see a troop of chimpanzees in their home, and a rhesus monkey, a little monkey, unfortunately wanders into their area where they are, and they kill it, rip it apart, and eat it. Now, I was a little shocked at that. First of all, I never even realized that monkeys ate meat. But the violence of it was quite astounding. But I didn't give it much thought. And then I watched another show where a chimpanzee from a different troop wandered into another troop's area, and they did the same thing to him or her. And that's when I said, we are not far from the chimpanzee. We have not progressed that much. We do the same thing. You're coming in my country, you're coming on my property, and we just been doing this from the beginning. I think we all have to understand there is something intrinsically wrong with the human race, that we act like this all the time, that it just never changed. So it's not a group of people that this person's bad, this group is bad. It's everybody. We have to come from that. There are people that say children have to be taught to hate, and I don't buy that. I think it's the other way around. I think we are already inbred to hate. That we have to be taught not to hate. I don't know if any of you know the book, The Lord of the Flies, which proves my point on this. The Lord of the Flies was a novel about a group of children. I would say all of them under 15. And they were shipwrecked on an island. And the grown-ups all died in the shipwreck. And the children were left to fend for themselves. And what did they end up doing? They ended up splitting up into two tribes. and went to war with each other, and one of the children was killed by the other tribe. So this is basic human nature. The end of the book, the end of the movie was, a British colonel gets off the ship and they show the dead body and people around him, and then they scan up and they show the gun on his hip, which signals that the gun is the authority and bringing some sense back to the civilization. But if we all start from that basic, we say we make God in our image. I don't know about that. I don't think God is a racist murderer like most of us are. Well, not most of us are racists and murderers. I mean, our basic human nature. When I say most, I mean the entire human race. But if we start out with a premise that there's something wrong with the human race and there's got to be a way to fix it, but we don't do that. We just keep doing things the way we've been doing it all along. And we are living the Lord of the Flies. Nothing really has changed in the thousands of years of human civilization. I don't know where that comes from. I don't see how civilized we really are. The thing to be civilized is if we concentrate more on knowledge and learning instead of, there are people that, first of all, this whole thing with Israel is astounding, the amount of people. And I was talking to somebody that I didn't know was Palestinian. He and I have been friends for a long time, and I was planning on staying friends with him. When I found out, it didn't matter to me until he espoused his views on Israel's going to be gone in 10 years. I said, where are they going to go? Oh, let them go to Germany. Let Israel. But he bases this on that Gaza is an open-air prison. I love this term, open-air prison. First of all, it's not a prison. These people are free to go anywhere they want. I have somebody that I've known for years, and when this happened, she said, well, Netanyahu kowtows to the right wing of his parliament, and that's why there's all these settlements going on. And I explained to her that if you had any knowledge before you opened your mouth, you would understand that there hasn't been a settlement in Gaza since 2005. And they talk about the apartheid. The Israelis were apartheid. They were told to leave. Now, when that happened, there was all kinds of infrastructure that was there, and it was all destroyed. Billions of dollars have gone into Gaza, and the only thing that the people there did would build tunnels and buy weapons and teach their children to hate from. If you saw pictures, unfortunately, I did see pictures of the October 7th. To have that kind of hate it has to be taught from childhood. This is your goal in life. And that's what these people are taught. And I'm not saying all Palestinians, obviously, there's certainly not. But they're taught from childhood to hate. And their goal in life is to kill an Israeli. And they achieve their goals. Instead, Gaza could have been a resort area for the world. It could have, right on the sea there, it could have been a beautiful place if they used. Listen, every group of people on this planet have been victimized. Greek, Roman, Egyptian societies were white slave societies. The Romans were throwing Christians to the lions. I don't know. I'm sure we've all heard that stories. Every single race, every single creed have been victimized since the beginning of the world. This is what we are, which I keep saying, that we are not made in God's image. I can guarantee that. Well, whether God created the earth or whether it was the Big Bang or whether it was evolution, I'm pretty sure if it was God that created the earth, it's still the stupid humans that created religion and all the division. So I think we created God in our image, and that God does not have an image we can understand. So how do we know that he created us in his image? Of course we don't. And that's part of the, I don't have the answer, you don't have the answer. But there are people that say, oh, no, God this, and the Bible says this. And the Bible is a book written by the hand of man. Well, it was God's breath of air that inspired. That is conjecture. You don't know that. Nobody knows if God inspired people to write the Bible. And let me ask you another question. God created Adam out of the dust. Yet, when he created Eve, he took a rib out of Adam to create Eve. Now, my question is, if he created Adam out of the dust, why couldn't he create Eve out of the dust? And then, of course, the people who know everything about religion and that I'm wrong and they're right, they will say, well, he wanted the woman to be a part of man, and that's why he took a part of Adam, the rib, and created Eve out of the rib. Well, I don't know. Here's my explanation. All life comes from the womb of a woman. Every animal on earth comes from the womb of a woman, every human, except the first woman came from the womb of a man. Now just think about that. And why do I think this happened? Because the Bible might have been inspired by God. Of course, I'm not going to say no because I don't know. But it was certainly written by old men who did not consider women equals. So they made the woman subservient to man from inception. If it wasn't for the man, there wouldn't be a woman. And if you look at all the major religions, that has been the case from the beginning. Women were not equal to men. It was in the Jewish religion. It was in the Catholic religion. In Islam, it's just absurd how they think about women. And I think a lot of that is based on this nonsense that we take the Bible and we take all these stories and proverbs and parables and we say, oh, this is what happened. No, this is not what happened. This is what we think happened. This is maybe happened. Maybe some of the things in the Bible are correct. I don't know. Neither do you. So don't sit there and tell me, you're already angry at me. Oh, he's saying it's not true what's in the Bible. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying I don't know. But I do know there's ways of looking at things like I just said about Adam and Eve. So, man is so arrogant, the human race. 100 years ago, doctors used to bleed their patients and think they were helping them. They thought they had knowledge that if they do this and they cut them and they bleed them, they're going to get better. All right. So this is how absurd. And now we know it's absurd. But at the time, we know. We are doctors and we know. It's the same thing with everything else. The scientists of the time thought that they understood 90% of the makeup of the universe. And that there was this pesky 10% that we do not know about. Then comes Einstein, and Higgs was part of the Higgs boson, where they split the atom and found a new particle. But I don't know if you've heard the dark matter or the God particle, or now it's called the Higgs boson. This is the fabric. This is what the fabric of the universe is made out of. And when we thought 100 years ago we knew what 90% of the universe was, we now understand that this particle is 90% of the universe, and we know nothing about it. So in reality, we only know what 10% of the universe is. So be careful when you say that you know things. And this is the acceptable definition of life, of God, of the universe. You really have to think more. You have to delve into things, and you have to have an open mind, which is not very preferable to most people. Because if they do, and if they have to question things, they question their own existence, and nobody wants to do that. So the Higgs boson, the God particle, is what holds the universe together, they think now. When the experiment happened and they split the atom in the collider, they did not get a vision of this particle. That's why it's all different names. What they did get was a streak, the tail end of what it was. And then they found out that this particle actually travels faster than the speed of time, the speed of light, which was considered impossible. So everything that we thought we knew, even up until 60, 70 years ago, we know nothing. Humans really know nothing. Humans are guessing at everything, including me. I do consider myself a human, unfortunately. Actually, I'm not sure what I'd rather be. But maybe there'll be a time when humans actually progress to something new. I don't know if I'll be around for that. It seems we are digressing, to me. We are going back. We are already tribalism. Now it's going back to caveman time. I mean, what you see what you saw what happened on October 7th is just beyond anything I thought possible from humans. And it's happened. So I think we have to just sit back a little bit and say, what do we know? What do we think we know? There are things like, I don't know if the Akashic record, if people know about that. This is what the theory of the Akashic record is, which is that everything that we've ever known, first of all, we don't learn things, we relearn it. So the theory is, in the Akashic record, all the information, all the things we know or we're ever going to know or ever did know is there. It's in the fabric of the universe. It's in this God particle, let's say. So it's already there, and we just get to tap into it every once in a while. I know people don't like to believe something like that, but I give a couple of examples. One of them is, I don't know if you know the periodic table. If you ever looked at it, we've all seen it in high school. And we all can remember probably, I don't know how many known elements there are actually, but I can guarantee you none of us can name more than a half a dozen. And the person that invented the periodic table, Dmitri Mendeleev, he said he found it in a dream. It came to him in a dream. And the next day he gets up and does this amazing thing. How is that possible? He had no knowledge of the elements and the weights of the elements and how to put them into a chart. Yet he had a dream, and the next day he gets up and he writes this down. That's not possible. So there has to be something we don't know is going on. There is another level. There's another dimension. I don't know how to describe it, but I believe in the Akashic record. And somehow this person was able to tap into it. And the basic theory is that there are only certain geniuses like Newton and Einstein and Michelangelo and Galileo and all of these people who were able to tap into it. There was another person. His name was Srinivasa Ramanujan, and he was a mathematician. And he came up with these theories and ways of figuring out prime that is still in use today. In fact, some of his theorems, they say if we do crack them, we will actually understand what a wormhole is. Now, this person came up with this, I'm not sure how long it was, 50, 80 years ago. And how did he come up with this? It came to him in a dream. Now, how is that possible? How could you have no knowledge anywhere? Anybody in the world at the time, including him, had absolutely no knowledge of theorems like this. And this man was self-educated. He ended up going to the universities in Oxford and England, and they accepted him after all these theorems came out. But how is it possible that he had a dream and the next day he came up with theorems that we still cannot break all the theorems? It's not possible. There is something out there. There is things we do not understand. They say Michelangelo was missing for, I'm not sure how long, but for a long time, that he went into a cave and came out a year late. If you go along his timeline, there's like a year or two where there's nothing about him. And the theory is that he was transported. And then when he comes back, he has drawings of helicopters and scuba gear and submarines. Where did this come from? How is that possible? Now, I don't know about the 1 year or two missing. I don't know how to explain that, but that's the whole point. You can't explain everything. And that's really, to me, the greatest part. Everything we can explain is brought us to where we are, which, if you look around today, is not in a great place. The world is just exploding. It's the anti-Semitism around the world is based on what? What did the Jewish people do that people hate them? And that's just based on, well, part of it is people don't understand that, why you're not supposed to talk about religion and politics, because they are the same. Now, when Christ was preaching, by the way, we're living in the year 2024, or more accurately, the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, 2024. So we're living in a Christian world. Actually, it might not be 2024. There's a lot of thought now among theologians that Christ lived till 38 and not 33, so we're not in the exact right year. So even that we don't really know. But when Christ was around, he was Jewish. He had no intention of creating another religion. What he was saying was, we have to reform some of the things in our religion now, in the general civilization that we're in. We all heard the story where Christ came into the courtyard and they were going to stone a woman to death for committing adultery. And he said, let those of you with no sin cast the first stone. Now, the religions, the Jewish and Christian religion, changed and obviously doesn't do that anymore. In Islam, I don't know how much it's changed. It's pretty sad the way some women are treated in Islam, and not as a full person. Anyway, the church wasn't started supposedly till 30 years after Christ died. And when they started the church, they needed parishioners. They needed people to come and worship and give them money. And most of the people that came to the first church were Jews. So how do you get more Jews to come to your church? Well, you tell them that the other Jews are bad people, and you make up lies and tell them that you really have to change, and you come. So that's one of the beginnings of how all these things start. During the Dark Ages, during the Crusades, the church, the lovely church at the time. Now, I have nothing against Christians. My best friends are Christians. It's the institution of the church that I have a problem with. But during the Crusades, they said that the Jews were actually killing babies to take their blood for matzahs, and people believe that. So this has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. If we have to understand what religion is, even the fact of that the earth moved around the sun and not the other way. The person that came up with this was Copernicus. And when the church found out that he said this in public, they jailed him. Blasphemy! How dare you go against the church's teachings? It's the other way around. The sun moves around the earth. And it wasn't until Galileo invented the telescope that he was able to prove it. And he was smart enough not to send his thesis out, his proof, mathematical proof of this, till he was on his deathbed, because the church would have said the same thing about him and put him in jail or killed him. We have to question it. We have to question authority. We have to question religion. We have to question ourselves, our own morality, or things will never change. So I think I've streamed enough for this session. Please stay in touch with me. I will at some point have a phone line that we can have call-in answers and questions. And look for me every Tuesday morning around 6 o'clock. I will be coming out with another podcast. I will be interviewing people, some politicians. I'm having an interesting interview with somebody who is taking veterans to Mexico to do the psilocybin and drugs like that our wonderful government stopped using during the Vietnam War because they looked at it as anti-war, and they put a kibosh on it, even though there was such good things coming out of it. And this is coming back, so I'll be talking to somebody from there. And there'll be a lot of other things. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned.